And we are back. It is time for the Game Week 26 Premier League predictions. We have got some massive games for you this week at the top and at the bottom of the Premier League. And these are going to be my predictions. As always, a reminder to drop a like on the video if you enjoy this series. Share it with a friend and subscribe if you are new around here. Let's just get straight into it because the first massive game comes straight away. And it is Manchester City up against Newcastle. Two teams who would argue they're still in the title race, one obviously more so than the other, but at the very least Newcastle are competing in the Champions League places right now. And look, they come up against the Manchester City team that look to have recovered in the last few games, two big wins for them over the last couple of weeks. And Newcastle have really been struggling to score goals recently, so that's what I'm going to take going into this fixture. Obviously, the reverse game was 3-3 at St James's Park earlier in the season. A fantastic game earlier on this year. But given the current form of the two sides off the back of the Carabao Cup final defeat and off the back of Manchester City's comfortable wins in the League and the FA Cup, I'm going to go for 2-0 to Manchester City. I don't think it's going to be too easy for them, but I just think right now Manchester City have a little bit too much for Newcastle in the early kickoff. But I will, of course, as a Manchester United fan, be hoping that Newcastle get at least something from the Etihad Stadium this weekend. On to the 3 o'clock kickoffs, and we start with Arsenal up against Bournemouth. Now, obviously, this is a game that quite a lot of people are probably going to be saying, well, Arsenal win this one fairly comfortably. And look, I'm going to be one of them. I'm going to be honest right now. I'm just going to go for 5-0 to Arsenal. The way Bournemouth have played over the last few weeks, the way Arsenal have played in their last two games, 4 goals in back-to-back games for Arsenal against a Bournemouth side that are really struggling in all areas of the pitch. I can really only see this being another thrashing from Arsenal, but in these title races, these are the sort of games where the big teams slip up. And we've already seen it recently with Arsenal dropping points at home to Brentford. I know Brentford are playing much better than Bournemouth this season, but it's just the sort of game where you can see something happening. But I'm not going to predict that to happen. I think Arsenal have played so well the last couple of weeks, and I expect them to do the same this weekend. So I'm going to go for 5-0 to Arsenal in that one. Next up, it is Aston Villa up against Crystal Palace. And again, Aston Villa, despite scoring regularly, are struggling to defend. And Crystal Palace, on the flip side, are defending well but struggling to score. So this is going to be a very interesting one. It's just going to come down to which defence comes out on top, in my opinion, because, like I say, all those factors go into it. I'm going to back Aston Villa as they are the home team. I'm going to go for 3-1. I think Villa have been playing very well offensively, but with the quality that Crystal Palace have on the break, there's definitely going to be chances for them as well, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Palace get at least a draw in this one. But for now, I'm going for Aston Villa, and I'm going for 3-1. Next is Brighton up against West Ham. West Ham, very inconsistent at the moment. Every time you think they're having a good game or starting to get on the road back to recovery, they have a bad game. And I thought they played pretty well at Old Trafford the other night in the FA Cup. They obviously weren't using Jarrod Bowen until the very end of that game as well. So positive signs for them recently, but Brighton are still playing so well. Yes, they had that shock home defeat to Fulham last week, but I have to stick with what I believe will happen, which is that Brighton come out on top in this one once again. And I'm going to go for 2-0 to Brighton. Like I say, I think this is a game Brighton would have marked as a game that they should be winning on their run of fixtures right now. And I'm going to back them to do that. On to Chelsea and Leeds. And, well, if ever a game had 0-0 written all over it, this was probably it. Neither side can buy a goal right now, let alone actually score one. So yeah, it's very hard for me to predict a 0-0, and I'm not going to predict a 0-0. I hate predicting 0-0s because you're inevitably never going to get a 0-0 prediction correct. I'm going to go for 1-0 to Chelsea. I just have to believe that they're going to score eventually, right? It's a massive week for them, this. They need a good performance in the Premier League, and then they've got their second leg against Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League. So, huge week for Chelsea. They need to get it started with a positive result against Leeds, and I'm just about going to back them to do that. Speaking of low-scoring games, the next game is Wolves against Spurs, and Wolves obviously have been struggling for goals recently. Spurs have been getting goals, but not many. They obviously lost with essentially their full first team without Harry Kane in the FA Cup away at Sheffield United last time out. So for me to say that they're going to easily go to Wolves and get a win is not something I can say with full confidence. I'm going to go for a 1-0 win for Spurs, kind of like with the Chelsea one. I just think defensively they'll have enough to keep Wolves out, and they'll just about create enough chances to maybe sneak one of them in. I mean, Liverpool struggled to get the 2-0 win against them in their last game, so I think Tottenham will just about get the win. But kind of like with the Chelsea Leeds game, I could see this game very easily being 0-0 as well. On to the evening game on Saturday, and it's a massive relegation battle. And the next game will be as well for the first game on Sunday. But we start with Southampton up against Leicester. Bottom of the league, Southampton against just got out of trouble Leicester as it stands right now. And as I spoke about yesterday in the fantasy football video, in terms of Leicester, it all depends on James Maddison's well-being. He's been ill, he's not been injured. So I believe if Maddison's back, Leicester get the win quite comfortably in this one. Southampton, despite that win at Chelsea, just haven't looked any better since the new guys come in. Nathan Jones obviously sacked and the caretaker managers come in. It looked like they had their mini resurgence with the win against Chelsea, but it's been straight back to what it was once again, losing at home to Grimsby with their full first team in the FA Cup this week. I just don't really see it happening for Southampton this season. I think they're pretty much destined to end up in the Championship next season, and I'm going to go for 3-1 to Leicester in this one. That is on the assumption that Maddison comes back. If Maddison's not back, probably change it to 2-1, but I think with Maddison back and available, Leicester take this one very comfortably. On to Sunday, and we start with another massive relegation battle game. We have Nottingham Forest against Everton. This time, the home team is the team that is out of trouble at the moment, with Everton firmly in the scrap. And I've spoken about Nottingham Forest's home record enough times at home. If you watched my fantasy football video yesterday, you would have seen that I'm backing Nottingham Forest to get the clean sheet, and that is going to be the case. I'm going to go for 2-0 to Nottingham Forest. Don't really see Everton causing Forest too many problems defensively, and Forest look pretty good at home when they are attacking. And despite Everton's seemingly good start defensively under Sean Dyche, in their last couple of games they've been hit for 6. So I think Nottingham Forest will get the job done in this one. On to what I believe is the biggest game of the weekend, and I'm sure a lot of you agree. It is the main event of Sunday. It is Liverpool and Manchester United. A game where everyone says that form goes out the window, but I'm not overly sure that is the truth. And look, I have to say, as a Manchester United fan, I'm looking forward to this one, which is something I've not been able to say for a while. The last 2 or 3 seasons, I've been terrified going to Anfield because I thought we were going to get stuffed. Now I'm terrified of going to Anfield because I think we might lose when I expect us to win. And that's just how far that we've come, and potentially how far Liverpool have fallen over the course of the last 6 months, where the only thing I'm scared of is losing because we should win. Whereas, like I say before, I was scared because I thought we were going to get thrashed. And that reflects in my prediction. I'm obviously going to go for a Manchester United win. I have to believe that we're more than capable of beating this Liverpool side at the moment if we play the way we have been playing over the last few weeks. But I'm not going to say it's going to be easy. I'm going to go for 3-2. Like I've said, over the last few weeks, we've been really poor starters in recent games, and Liverpool have been very good starters in recent games. So I can definitely see Liverpool potentially going 1 and 2-0 up, like they did against Newcastle, like they did against Real Madrid. But this Manchester United side has so much resilience and fight right now. I think even if that were the case, with the ability that we have available to us right now, and with the fragility of Liverpool's defence when they do concede, I still believe we win the game, even if we do go 1 or 2-0 down. So I'm going for 3-2 to Manchester United. Hopefully it'll be a little bit easier than that, but I still expect us to get the win. And finally, on the Monday night football, we have Brentford up against Fulham. 2 sides that probably wouldn't have targeted European spots this year, but are both well in the fight, certainly for a Europa Conference place, potentially even a Europa League place if certain results regarding Liverpool, potentially Tottenham and Newcastle end up going their way. So a really tough game to call this. Brentford have a fantastic home record. Fulham don't have the best away record, and that's sort of what I'm going with going into this game. And I'm going to go for 2-1 to Brentford. I think this could be a really tight game. I think all 3 results are possible here, and I think whichever team does get the result here will end up being the favourites to push on to those potential final Europa Conference spot this season. And like I say, this is a massive game for both clubs in their prospects for this season. and I've got Brentford to take this one. And that is going to be it for today. As always, let me know down in the comments your thoughts on my predictions for this week, as well as letting me know your predictions for the upcoming game week. Thank you very much for watching. I will be back at some point Sunday evening. I'll either do my reaction to the Liverpool-Man United game from a Liverpool fan's house, or I will do it later in the evening when I get back home. Thank you very much for watching once again. I'll see you then.